One.
Good morning.
Welcome to our April 14th session of our second Wednesday safety session. I'm always happy to be here with you all. We are broadcasting from the South Florida AGC offices today. It's not as exciting as broadcasting from the Safe Right Training Center, but the commute is a bit easier. I want to start off, as always, by thanking the team at Kelly Cronenberg for their help. Thank you to Tim and Cedric for their technical assistance and ensuring that our broadcasts always go smoothly. I would also like to thank the title sponsors for our second Wednesday safety session, and that is the team from Milwaukee Tools. Today from the Milwaukee team, we have actually a couple of folks. It's great. We got the full trio here. So we have Curtis Majors, Uriel Soto, and Roger Flores. Boys, turn on those cameras. I want to see those faces. So there we go, Mr. Majors, Mr. Flores, and Uriel. Uriel, are you just going to be a disembodied voice today?
Yes, sir. These guys are going to take it.
Perfect.
They're going to take over.
You guys are all on mute, so make sure you unmute, and the floor is yours, folks. Thank you, Team Milwaukee. Go ahead.
Roger, you're on mute.
Yeah, you guys are on mute, so go ahead and unmute, please.
Bottom left-hand corner, Roger.
Yeah, welcome to your first safety session, Roger. It happens to the best of us, buddy. Go ahead.
Thank you, man. Thanks, Carlos, and for the opportunity. You know, like, I'm more than happy to be part of the safety committee, and you know, like, everything we have done, we can have done with your help. So thank you so much, guys. After a year, doing a great job during probably the last few years, is accepted a position now in North Carolina, and I'm going to be taking his spot. My previous job was, you know, the job site solutions at Miami. So now, like I said, I'm taking over Uriel, and I'm more than happy to, you know, like I said, to be part of this, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you guys in the near future. When I'm talking about the near future, is I really mean it. Safety Week is right around the corner. Milwaukee Tools is committed to supporting locally and nationally. So what I mean by this is, last year during COVID year, we were able to host more than 15 events. We're able to impact more than 1,500 workers at the job site level, and at the national level, we were able to host more than 150 events, 10,000 users, and we were able to show at the job site how to be safer and work, you know, like pretty much in a safer environment. This year is not going to be an exception. So as you guys know, the Safety Week from 3rd to the 7th, we already have some events online, and I want to work with all of you guys. So please, if you need our help, this is all the topics that we can talk in when we go to job site. We can talk about silica, PPE, noise and vibration, and we're gonna be more than happy to do it. As you can see now, we already have, like I said, some events online. We definitely wanna do more than 20 events this week, and please reach out. My email is in the bottom, and also, as you can see here, that's my phone number. Curtis is gonna take the floor right now. That's gonna be his phone number as well. And also we have people at the Palm Beach, Broward, and also we're gonna have a guy in the Miami area that's gonna be backfilling me. So guys, looking forward to working with all of you, and let's have some safety events at your job site. Curtis?
Yeah, thanks, Uriel. He kind of went through it a little bit fast, but just want you guys to understand that what we're doing for Safety Week is that we want to make sure that we're partnering with the GCs as well as the subs out on these job sites, and really trying to see whatever value add that we can bring, and what topic we can talk to that we feel most confident speaking to. So if you see on the right-hand side of the screen there, those are some of the topics that really go well with the tools that we have, and then the proper way to use the PPE, et cetera. So there's so much that goes into it. Some of the things that we really wanted to talk about, I think that can go, it's one of the trending things that we see right now, because it's not one of OSHA's mandates, but it can always fall under the general duty clause, is which is a struck by hazard, but it goes into using tool tethers. We know that that's not mandated on job sites, but there are some of you that do require 100% tie off. So we like to just come out and just show how to properly tie off the tools. We can spec in certain jobs if we need to, as well as, you know, the weight requirements. There's different types of tools as well that don't have lanyard holes, or maybe they don't have the easy way to just wrap a loop around it. So we have a whole guide and can go walk through the process of doing that. So that's one of those things that obviously we're a tool company, and having those tool tethers, that should be our forte. So we'll love to come out and speak to that, and then any of the topics that you see there. So we're really dedicated as a team. We're helping out on the national level, like Roger said. And if there's anything that you guys would like to reach out to us directly, say, hey, by the way, we're having an event here or there, just please reach out. We'll put it on the calendar. We got a lot of manpower down here. We even have more than you see right here. So we got other people that we can pull if we need to fill a slot that's already taken on a specific day. So
Curtis, could I ask you and Roger, because it flashed very quickly. Could you guys share your emails, please? And we'll start off with your email.
Yeah, so mine is curtis.majors@milwaukeetool.com. And then it's roger.flores@milwaukeetool.com.
Great.
His is right there at the bottom too. Yeah.
Yeah, mine is going to be right there at the bottom.
Perfect. You know, it's we really appreciate what you and your Milwaukee team do, you know, in general for our association, but what you guys do on the safety side is fantastic. You guys support us and allow us to get the technology needed for us to do this. So we appreciate that. And I think I speak for all of us when I say, Uriel Soto, we are going to miss you, buddy. I wish you, and I know a lot of other people do whenever I tell them you're going, that we wish you the best in your new endeavor. And I know you got family here in South Florida, so whenever you come and visit, man, we'd love to see you.
Absolutely, man. You're not going to get rid of me that easy, man. You guys take care. Pleasure working with you, Carlos.
No. And I think that's the attitude we all have here. So, you know, you're going to be missed. We appreciate everything you've done, and you have earned your new opportunity, sir. So good luck to you and your team. All right.
Thank you, man.
So thank you, Milwaukee, very much. I think that I really love what you guys are doing for Safety Week. We too are going to be, if you guys could stop your share, that would be great. You know, so what we're going to be doing, we're going to be working with the student chapter on a series of interviews that we're going to be putting out during Safety Week. Again, just to reiterate, that is coming up starting on May 3rd. And, you know, Safety Week is an opportunity for our people and our companies to celebrate the incredible hard work that all of you in the safety industry do on your job sites. Those of you that make safety a priority. So we'll be sharing resources via email with all of you and your companies that you too can use to participate in Safety Week. But definitely reach out to the team at Milwaukee if you're interested in having them come out on your job sites. Very quickly, before we get to the real reason we're here, I want to remind you all that all of our Second Wednesday safety sessions can now be found on YouTube. So it's very easy to find our channel. Just drop in South Florida AGC and it will pop up. I believe we have from October on available for you all to look. So that's going to be everything on hearing protection. I believe we have Brandon Bean's session that he did as well on the insurance side for you guys to be able to take a look at. And then we also have what to expect from OSHA and our OSHA update on there. So a lot of good information that you all can access via YouTube. So just for you all to know. The weather has been great. I think today's the first time in a couple weeks that we're supposed to be up in the 80s. So it's been pretty fantastic, but all of us Floridians especially know that the heat is coming. 80 something today, and I think that it's going to just keep going up and up and up. It's not going to stop till we hit September. That being the case, our safety committee felt April was the right time to get us all prepared to deal with heat stress on the job site. So today we have a panel of experts from different disciplines coming together to cover heat stress from a few different angles. They're going to give each of them, are going to give a brief presentation, about 10 minutes each, before an open Q&A style panel discussion, which is going to be fantastic. So what I'd like for you to do as our experts are going through their portions, I'd like for you to submit your questions that you have. So if they're not answered as we go through the presentation, we're going to get to them at the final Q&A. So joining us today, and my experts, you guys can throw on your cameras. It's great. Joining us today is Margaret Morrissey, the Director of Occupational Safety at the Korey Stringer Institute. Very cool work that the Korey Stringer Institute does, and I'm going to let her explain that a little bit more when it's her turn. She's responsible for managing research and educational initiatives to provide employers and workers with recommendations, strategies, and resources to protect against heat-related illnesses. And I know that they were very focused on the military and sports world, but I think they realized that the construction world is really in need of their expertise. We also are going to have all of our friends, a friend to all of us, Brian Cardona, who is the safety director at Advanced Roofing. It is one of Florida's largest commercial roofing contractors and a member of the South Florida 8, and he is a member of the South Florida AGC Safety Committee. So I'm happy to have Brian here with us too. And then starting things off today, we have Dr. Stephen Parks. Dr. Parks is Concentra's Director of Medical Operations for the East Florida market, the fun part of Florida. He is board certified in occupational medicine and has more than 20 years of experience in the field. Dr. Parks, the floor is yours, sir. And Dr. Parks, you are, there we go. There you are, sir.
Yeah. It takes me a second, but I'll get there eventually.
The mute button is everybody's enemy, sir.
So as I'm going to start sharing my screen, I just want to talk and say thank you to everyone for allowing me to participate in this safety event. We at Concentra, as an occupational medicine service, are very attuned to prevention of disease and illness in the workplace. So we just want to partner with all of you in your endeavor. So I truly appreciate it. So starting off today, can everybody see my screen? I do want to make sure you can see it, but I want to talk about heat stress from a medical point of view. You know, all in all, in our Concentra centers, we see a lot of injury and illness that arise from the workplace. We do see heat related events or illnesses that come from the workplace, especially construction and roofing. Sorry, I'm trying to control my screen here, so not doing a great job at it. There we go. So with that being said, we can provide services for both medical treatment purposes, and we'll talk about it later for prevention services as well. So the slide set today, it's about 20, so I'll try to get it all in. I just want to emphasize the fact of why heat stress and talking about it is so important. The world is getting warmer. I think decade over decade, they have seen more heat stress at the workplace than they have historically. It is important for, of course, the protection of your workers, the health of the workers, but it's also good business to keep your employees productive, safe, and working, and keep them healthy as well. And your workers, you know, they want to keep working, they want to make the money. So sometimes they may avoid the sometimes embarrassing symptoms or just the symptoms associated with heat stress, just to remain at the workplace. So all of us as a team need to be able to oversight, you know, what it means to be too hot at work. So we already know what occupations or operations that will make a work environment very hot, you know, high air temperatures, The sources around you can be hot as well, be it tar, be it the asphalt surface, and direct physical contact with those surfaces as well conduct heat into the body, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But also the physical exertion of the activity itself will cause increased heat that is metabolically made within the employee. So, so we just need to be aware of all of these factors, and that they all combine in the outdoor operations that make it riskier for work outside. So there are many factors that go into heat-related illnesses. That includes personal factors of the employee, be it their age, weight, metabolic systems, obesity, use of alcohol or drugs, other medical conditions. There's also type of clothing worn. I'm always amazed at wearing black in Florida is a thing, especially with the intense sunlight, and that will absorb and produce a lot of heat that goes into the person's body. And of course, just the environmental factors itself, in Florida especially, because the air temperature may be in the 80s, the heat index may be in the 90s, and we just need to be aware of that. The movement of air too. So working outside is actually sometimes better if you're closer to the beach, especially because the wind helps to evaporate and cause cooling effect on workers. But there are workers in closed spaces that don't have that air movement, and guess what? They can get hotter very quickly. So just a couple of physics lessons. I'm not a physicist by any means, but we do know that conduction and convection in the human body are very important to the ability for the body to regulate temperature. Number one, just coming into contact with that hot surface. And number two, the convection aspects of air movement around the human body. So the skin is the coolant, the cooling system of the human body. So they need the air around them to evaporate sweat. But also if the air is too hot, it can cause an increase or an addition to heat stress in the human body as well. So we need to all be aware of that. A few other things like the humidity will decrease evaporative cooling too. And also the sunlight itself can cause increased heat absorption. So being aware of all of these factors, all of the preventive measures need to be addressed for these conditions. So the body handles heat. It senses heat. The brain senses the heat of the increased temperature internally. So it causes a few changes inside of us that helps it to adapt and regulate heat. It allows for, it actually pumps more blood. It directs more blood to be flowing to the skin, because the skin is going to be increased in sweating. The sweating is supposed to evaporate. The blood flow is supposed, so the skin, the sweat is evaporated from the skin, cooling the skin, and then the blood flow to the skin takes it back to the internal core, helping it to regulate internal temperature. And the heart rate is increased because of that. So if the blood is going to the skin, less blood is going to muscles. There's less blood going to the brain. So guess what? That has impacts as well. There's increased weakness and fatigue. For the brain, there's decreased mental capacity and alertness, comprehension and retention of information. And just the sweating itself causes some irritability. It's irritating to have your safety glasses fog up. It's irritating to have them fall down. It's irritating to have sweaty palms, not being able to grip and grasp the tools. So that in of itself is a irritating factor when you're trying to work, especially outside. And then just the wet clothing that you're going to be wearing, or the protective gear you're going to be wearing. So there are many risk factors at work that we need to account for. So running through these slides, we all know who's basically at risk as far as occupation. Anybody working with heat in a heat environment, and heated construction especially is probably the biggest one that we know of. And for this presentation, you know, the firefighter is a good example because they're working with fire. They're wearing all these protective gear, carrying protective gear, running elevated heart rate just because of the strenuous response. So they are at increased risk, but also people just working on the roof, climbing up ladders, you know, or just walking on hot surfaces. We need to account for all of that. So the environment is very risky when it's very hot, when the air is humid, the air is not moving, and then there's direct contact with hot objects. So I want to talk about this and really stress this one. I think this is probably the one where I am most attuned to, because people can acclimate to most heat environments well, unless they have a pre-existing condition or habit or something that would put them at increased risk. That includes all the conditions listed: being overweight, being older, having a lower fitness level, medications can contribute, alcohol or drug use. I always use an example. I used it yesterday in our practice, but it's I was seeing and treating a young guy who came in because he was trying to work outside. He'd been working outside for a while. He was acclimated and considered to be acclimated. He was young and healthy, but he started to develop just being weak and fatigued and nearly passing out, if not passing out once, while at work. Every day he would go in, he said he felt fine, but then as the day progressed, he was having more and more problems. And after that went on for a few days, I sent him in for evaluation, and I got to talking to him and I asked him about all the things that are listed here. And almost, I'll be honest, a lot of construction workers check off the alcohol use box. And I asked him what that meant to him. And he said, well, I always drink a few beers every night. I said, what is a few beers? And he said, well, about 12 or more every night. And I said, well, you know, that's a lot of beer. You're dehydrating yourself. And probably the next day you're in withdrawal. So there's two components there. He was going into a heated environment already dehydrated. He was drinking coffee in the morning, which can lead to dehydration as well. But then he was also in withdrawal. So with those two things being said, I did ask him to go see a substance abuse professional, of course. So with that being said, we in medicine need to focus on that, because we do understand that an underlying health condition such as a heart disease can cause sudden death at work, not even just due to heat stroke or heat exhaustion, but like a tachycardic event that could cause sudden death at work as well. So just want to put all of these things out there. I know you and the field probably can't delve into people's medical conditions, but you can be observant about their habits. And if you know them well enough, you understand maybe how much they drink. You can understand their fitness levels. And on the medical side, during maybe a pre-employment exam for screening or pre-placement examination, that's better, we can understand if they do have a medical condition that would preclude them from safely working in a hot environment. All right, let's go over the different heat-related illnesses. Heat stroke, I put up first because it is the deadly one. It's the most dangerous one. People have been working outside so long during their day, they've lost so much fluid, they can no longer regulate their own temperatures. Once the core temperature rises to a certain degree, 105 degrees, it can no longer regulate itself, and it can lead to death. Cell structures can start to break down. The dehydration can start to cause an effect on the kidneys, causing them to shut down. There's a lot of things that can happen within us when we're that hot. So what do you need to look for? The confusion, the mental status changes, even loss of consciousness and convulsions. They actually stop sweating. Their skin is hot and dry, and their temperature will be 105 or very hot. So they need to be seen by medical treatment immediately. EMS needs to be called. That's why an emergency action plan needs to exist at every hot environment on a workplace. These people need to be, once it's identified, put them in a cool, shady area, remove any outer clothing, fan the body, do not leave them unattended, so forth and so on until EMS arrives. Heat exhaustion is really what leads up to heat stroke. This is where the deadly event can be avoided by observing at this level or even in the heat weakness phase as well. But again, you're going to hear things like headache, nausea and vomiting, dizziness, thirsty. The skin is still moist but clammy, and the body temperature can still be normal, and these people are still sweating. So they need to be removed to a cool, shady place, given plenty of fluids. And most cases can respond just to hydration. More severe cases may need IV hydration. So there's a continuum here of severity. Heat cramps, again, is an electrolyte imbalance in the muscles. Remember, blood is flowing away from muscles. If electrolytes, if there's an imbalance from low blood salt due to maybe a medication they're taking, And then also they will start to have spasms of muscle. So they just need that electrolyte replenishment through sports drinks and just cooled off. So heat collapse or feigning is actually, and I think we've all done this maybe when we've been standing for too long, especially remember being younger in sports events, standing in one place, I'd pass out. You know, people who are being married, you know, sometimes pass out in front of their preachers when they're getting married because of this very phenomenon. The blood is pooling out of the brain into the legs, which causes sudden loss of consciousness or fainting. And again, it's going back to the concept that blood is being pumped to the skin and not to the internal organs or the brain as much as normal. And then the blood literally pools down into the legs. Again, they need to be moved to a shady environment, elevate the legs, have them lie down. So the heat rash is common because of prickly heat, which can lead to a rash. Wet skin due to sweat clogging the duct pores can cause a rash. These can cause infections. So this, again, having good evaporation of sweat from the skin will help avoid these. And last is, let me see, yeah, that's heat fatigue. So again, people are accustomed to working in the heat. Mental strain, impaired performance, they just need the preventive measures that will remove them from the heat and keep them hydrated. So the recommendations, I'm going to skim through these because that's really what we're going to be talking about the rest of this presentation. I know Brian will be presenting these things. I know Maggie will be presenting on these as well, but people need acclimated to heat. It's the 20% rule day by day, especially of those who've been out for extended leave, vacation, or starting up after fall and winter back into a heat environment. Prevention is fluid replacement, environmental training. The buddy system is good, but basically observe each other, help each other out, keep plenty of fluid available for them to be drinking. They need to drink small amounts frequently. Do not over drink, of course. And then controlling the environment through ventilation, air conditioning services, limiting exposure to heat. And again, heat stress training should be involved with every safety program. Just knowing the hazards, recognizing the danger signs, being aware always, who's responsible, know the dangers and the risks, using of protective equipment and clothing, and know the purpose of active worker participation in this program. So with that being said, I just want to say thank you for letting me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions as we go along.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dr. Parks. We appreciate it. And you're definitely going to be getting some questions very soon. Coming up next, we have the great and mighty Brian Cardona. Mr. Cardona, are you ready to go, sir?
No pressure. No pressure, Carlos. No pressure, huh?
No. Well, I got to give you a good intro, man. Got to give you. You're deserving. You're certainly deserving. Please, floor's yours.
Appreciate that. All right. Just want to make sure I've got that PowerPoint up. All right. So let's start off here where Dr. Parks left off a bit. Just wanted to thank everyone for their time. I know everyone's either out there on a job site or an office. I appreciate you all, taking some time here to either learn or expand our knowledge on topics that truly mean a lot to us and make a difference out there in the field. Obviously, today's objective is to spotlight the very real danger, which is heat stress, right? With that said, let's talk a little bit about the risk factors. We should know them by now. However, it's always good to recap. We have high temperatures and humidity, direct exposure to sunlight, no breeze and wind, dehydration. We also have heavy physical labor, non-breathable clothing, which we see that a lot depending on your actual work. You could see this with welders out there. Some of the PPE they were actually required to wear will actually put us in a position to experience some of this heat stress. We also have equipment that's radiating heat and workers that are not acclimated. Let's move on to this next slide. Here we'll go ahead and here we go. So what is heat index? Let's piggybacking off what the doctor said. So he spoke more about heat stress, the different conditions that an actual worker can experience and what we should be doing, and more importantly, what we should be paying attention to. I'm going to touch a little bit on the importance of understanding heat index and using our tools to go ahead and pretty much put together a plan And believe it or not, on a daily basis is the way you're going to be most successful day in and day out. And we're talking about, basics such as, we have here, I lost myself on here. Okay, so you have the body, when your body gets too hot, begins to perspire, sweat, or cool itself off, that we're trying to go ahead and ensure that we're preventing these things from happening. And we have different mechanisms that we could use, but obviously starting off with our heat index is the first thing we should do. We have apps today, such as, weather apps. You have National Weather Service. You have the OSHA app, by the way, which is still out there. All of these things can help contribute towards planning accordingly, right? And correctly identifying what your heat index is. As a matter of fact, I hope that all of you out there, in combating the summer heat that is coming up real soon here, we should be having this graph somewhere posted on our job site, on our phone, somewhere easily accessible. So we can quickly go to our apps, find out what the heat index is, and then based off the actual high temperature and humidity and this chart, we then identify that anything above 91 to 103 degrees should increase your risk level to moderate, right? That means you're going to start implementing precautions and heighten your awareness. However, we do often experience higher temperatures, such as 103 to 115 degrees. And believe it or not, you should be out there in the field from time to time at different portions of the day, say early in the morning, then towards noon, and then in the afternoon, and figuring out what those trends are as far as weather goes, right? When is your hottest time during the day? And then what are the precautions that you're setting to protect your workers as well, right? We have engineering controls, and you should always attack this from the perspective of a safety professional, using your hierarchy of controls, right? We're looking for engineering controls. We all know that PPE is the last resort as far as combating any type of hazard. But as far as engineering controls, things that do work is covered rest areas, cooling stations with fans. As a roofing contractor, believe it or not, we do have our tents up there on the roof. We do have misters, right? We have cooling stations where workers are able to take that quick 15-minute break if absolutely necessary. You break the water breaks into intervals throughout the day. And I know if there's any superintendents on here, they're going to have issues with production. And I understand that. However, if you can stagger those times, right, to continue your production and at the same time prevent these hazards and heat stress from ever occurring, it's going to go a long way, right? What you don't want is an emergency to occur on your job site. And that's definitely going to affect your productivity. So if we just plan a little bit and understand what are weather patterns throughout summer, what are our hottest times, we could actually do a good job of attacking this ahead of time, right? Simple things such as, if we do go down to PPE, long sleeve shirts with UPF rating, right? And that's just a protection factor against UV rays. You have, something such as inexpensive, such as a cooling towel on your head, on your neck, right? Hard hats with brims and shade. And these are some examples of exactly what I was talking about. This is a setup that we use out on the actual job site. On this specific site, the roof was too small to actually put this tent, but that didn't preclude us from actually setting up an actual station for our employees, for our workers, right? And we understand that this small investment is going to go a long way compared to, the potential for an emergency, the potential for a workers' comp injury, the potential for an overnight stay at say a hospital, right? And now you're talking about a recordable, and further from that, a reportable. You're having to call in the local OSHA office and letting them know, hey, we had a heat stress event. So these are things you can invest in ahead of time, right? To make sure that your workers are continuously working safe, right? And with their health in mind at all times. So with those apps, you're able to actually see the exact location. You just put on your GPS and it'll tell you exactly on your job site how hot it is at that time. And as you go building your actual plan, you'll start to see there's a lot of recurring themes, right? The hottest time during the day, what times do you have lunch? Is lunch affecting your workers out there after they eat and they're going out into the heat? What they're actually buying from, say, the lunch truck. Are we talking about large energy drinks that are heavily caffeinated? Are we talking about the Cuban coffee, which I love myself as well? But all these things are important, and believe it or not, do affect your ability to work and avoid heat stress throughout the day. So a key component to what I would say heat stress is obviously education, training your employee, letting him understand that what he's putting in his body is affecting him throughout the day and could lead to a medical emergency. And we're not even diving into other factors, risk factors that are, personal health, if someone's diabetic, those are all additional factors. We're just talking about someone who is physically fit and 100%, without any underlying issues, they can still suffer from heat stress. So everything we do leading up to the moment we're out on the job site is extremely important, right? And it's all about planning, and it's all about having that plan to begin with. So hydration, be proactive, right? That means that you're drinking, if you're going to be out in the field for 2 hours or more, you're drinking 1 cup, which is 8 ounces of water every 15 to 20 minutes. Make sure that during prolonged sweating lasting several hours, drink sports drinks. I know somebody asked that question. So the rule of thumb typically, and at least how we've approached this, being roofers and we're exposed to the sun at all times, obviously, is we're doing it 50-50, right? We don't want to always provide, sports drinks such as Gatorade for electrolytes at all times, right? Because you might overconsume electrolytes, you might overconsume on the sugar. So you do want to have, access to just potable water as well, in addition to your sports drinks that will provide those electrolytes, right? But most importantly, avoid alcohol and drinks, right, with high caffeine or sugar. You need to have a serious conversation, an honest conversation about alcohol consumption. We're talking about days, after a holiday, leading up to a holiday. These are the perfect times when you can have these conversations about, ensuring that if you are going to have a rough night and you're showing up to work the next day, you're likely going to be putting your team at risk. For one, we don't know what the hazards are going to be with someone who may potentially pass out because of heat stress. From a roofer's perspective, I know that, unfortunately, early on, I had to learn about the differences, with workers being exposed at all times, right? We don't have the luxury of having a shade or working inside a building, and hence why we led to the, having our cool down stations. But having an emergency action plan for someone that does pass out on a roof, I'll tell you, is going to go a long way, instead of trying to figure out how to bring someone down in a medical emergency, right? Easy for firefighters, not so easy for roofers. So we pay a lot of attention to what's going on throughout the day, but we pride ourselves more in communication throughout the entire day, right? From our foreman down to our workers, ensuring that they're okay. It's not a big deal to ask someone, hey, are you okay? How are you feeling? Or to even pull that person out of working, because sometimes you must protect that worker from himself. And we'll talk a little bit more on a couple of these slides in reference to that. You'll see that mostly with the younger worker or the temp worker. Okay, let's move on to this next slide. And I hope everyone out there that's actually attending here right now and listening to this has one of these color charts to ensure that you're hydrated. This is more on the, what you can do for yourself on the portable restrooms. Everyone should have one of these, easily accessible, so you're able to read. So that part of that communication is also the worker that's out there in the field. And if he notices, hey, I am dehydrated, I need to go drink some water, right? But this is part of that education piece, right? Of communicating on a daily basis. Hey guys, these are the expectations in the summer months. This is what we want you to do. Make sure you're constantly communicating. Make sure you're checking on yourself. When you do go to that restroom, make sure you're referring to the actual color chart. So let's try not to butcher this word. I'm gonna try my best here. So acclimatization, what is it? I learned this early on in my career in safety the hard way. And it was mainly from a temp worker. I used to work with precast garages. We did a lot of foundation work, and I had a temp worker who actually showed up, very enthusiastic, young man, about 20 years old, looked strong as an ox. And of course, like any other job site, they're going to put him to do the most labor intensive work. I was kind of new at my job. I should have known better. Now I do. And lo and behold, a good 40 minutes later, I have this guy who's about a good 260, all muscle, passing out inside, a 10-foot excavation where they were doing form work for a precast footer. difficult to get a guy out of the out of an excavation of that size. But one of my prouder moments that I've had in my career was, bringing that guy into the trailer and all hands on deck, making sure we have those ice packs underneath the armpits, underneath the back of the knees and his neck, dousing him with water, putting cooling towels. We were able to stabilize him, right? Within a good 30 minutes of consistently rotating and doing that. And to the point where, unfortunately, we did have to call 911, but they are the experts, right? Once it reaches that level, all you can do is provide support at that point, and we need to take that person to seek medical attention immediately. But one of my prouder moments, why? Because he didn't look good. He looked in bad shape, and I had never seen somebody. I quickly learned how hot it could be inside an excavation, a lot hotter than it is just, on your walking, working surface. But, lesson learned. Next time I had a plan, right? We went ahead and made sure that everyone was hydrated, which, by the way, I highly encourage everyone, when you do your stretch and flex in the mornings, that should be ended with a quick hydration period where everyone is able to go, at minimum, drink one cup of water, right? And that's going to start the process for the entire day. And that's going to keep that person, it's going to be top of mind. Hey, I need to be hydrated, especially in these summer months, right? It's getting hotter and hotter. So with that said, make sure you're acclimating these newer workers or someone that, may have come back from, say, a vacation that hasn't, say that you went up north and you were in the snow hanging out, once you come down to South Florida, it's not snowing anymore. So 50% of that workload, or increasing it 20% a day for an entire week for someone who's starting off new, it's extremely important. Ensuring that, think of baby steps, right? And I know it's a difficult pill to swallow for superintendents that want productivity as well. I understand that. This is usually where our two worlds collide. But again, we're trying to prevent emergencies from happening. We're keeping people's safety and health in the forefront. And you must do this, especially with newer workers, especially with temp workers. And understand that OSHA is also, making sure that you are providing the same training to that temp worker. This is a big initiative that they have for quite some time now. So anything that's good for your employee should be good for that temp worker as well. So I suggest adopting a plan, not just for temp workers, but for that new hire that's onboarding, for that long-term worker that has come back from a vacation, right? These things will go a long way towards preventing an emergency overall. All right, that went faster than I thought. We're gonna kick it over to Margaret Morrissey. I'll be available for questions and answers, and looking forward to it.
Wow, Brian Cardona's so good at this. He's even got the handoff to Margaret. I didn't have to worry about it, but I like to talk, so I'm just going to jump in anyways. Thank you very much, Mr. Cardona. Ms. Morrissey, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm just going to get my slides up here. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and thank you for the two presenters before me. Sets me up really well for what I'm about to talk to you about today, which is body cooling, specifically product innovation and efficacy. I want to start by talking a little bit about my organization, the Korey Stringer Institute, and what we do. So many of you have probably heard of Korey Stringer. Korey Stringer was a NFL player who played on the Minnesota Vikings. He was at practice during preseason, collapsed on the field. The medical team did not have the appropriate emergency procedures in line, and he ended up passing away from exertional heat stroke. And so this happened in 2001. And the Korey Stringer Institute was founded in 2011 to continue his legacy on and to ensure that this doesn't happen again to athletes, military, and individuals in the occupational space. So you can see on the right, or excuse me, left side is all the corporate sponsors we have for the Korey Stringer Institute. And we're really excited because we're starting a new organization, our branch of Korey Stringer Institute, called the National Heat Safety Coalition. It's going to launch June 1st, 2021. and it's specifically dedicated to protecting workers from the dangers of heat. And so what we plan on doing is providing heat safety research, education, and awareness. We want to work with companies and organizations to advise on heat safety solutions, ones that are tailored to your organization or your work site, and be really strong advocates for heat safety standards as well as recommendations. We have a recommendation paper that's coming out in the next couple months. So my email will be at the end of my slide deck. So please feel free to reach out to me with any questions on that. So to start with heat stress mitigation strategies. So Brian and Dr. Parks had talked about this. There's a lot of different things you can do. There's heat mitigation strategies that are more difficult to implement than others. For example, increased fitness levels. It's really hard for you to tell your workers to be more fit. It's obviously something you can't do on during work. It has to occur outside, and you probably cannot dictate what they do outside of work. So that's why solutions such as body cooling strategies are really effective, because it's something you can do during work. And so when you're trying to find the best body cooling device or method for your work site and for your workers, you want to think of the acronym LEFT. And so that means L for location, E for efficacy, F for feasibility, and then T for timing. So location. So is your location in a remote site? Is it a permanent facility? Is it a temporary facility, such as a trailer? So do you have access to power? So the body cooling device you want to use, does it need power? Will you be able to utilize it? Efficacy, is it evidence-based? Does it actually show that it cools the body? So that's something I'm going to talk about in the next couple of slides. Feasibility, do you require PPE that doesn't allow you to use the body cooling device that you want to use? And then timing is really important. So strategies, when can these strategies be implemented? So as safety personnel, you can provide the resources during work, but before and after will be much more difficult. But you can educate your workers on the importance of body cooling as a strategy against heat stress. So using body cooling before work will allow their body to increase heat capacity, so be able to work better in the heat, have better tolerance, and then after helps with recovery. And so moving on to products and the efficacy of products. And so here is a list of body cooling methods, quite a lot to choose from. And a lot in this table, it also shows efficacy as well as costs associated. I know the costs are all over the place. It really depends on the product. But I'm going to go into each one of these and describe them all based on how effective they are. So basically how well they cool the body. So I'm going to start with the ones that are considered the most effective. And so that would be whole body cold water immersion on the left, and then air conditioning. So of course, these are conditions that if they are the most effective, but the least feasible to introduce into an occupational setting. So you can see whole body cold water immersion. This is a picture of an athlete who this is actually coming from an exertional heat stroke video. And so it's considered the gold standard for exertional heat stroke treatment. So of course, this is not as feasible in the occupational setting. And then air conditioning, you would need to have a permanent facility to be able to utilize that. And going on to the moderate efficacy products. So these along with the lower ones are ones that are more feasible that can be introduced into your setting. So there's extremity immersion cooling. So you can see this particular athlete is putting their forearms in a trough and going from the left to the right. Air movement, Brian has a great setup for his workers where there's fans. Shade is not a product, but I would definitely recommend having a shaded area for your workers to rest. Having mist fans is effective as well because you are able to cool your body from when the sweat from your skin is evaporated into the environment. So if you're wetting your skin, that's actually helping with your cooling capacity. And then last, you look at cooling vests. So there's two different types of cooling vests. Cooling vests can range from like $30 to $3,000. There's some that are really, really high tech. Those obviously aren't feasible. But there's conductive cooling vests, which are ones that have cold inserts. So like from a freezer, or the ones that you can, shake and it'll get cold, be able to utilize that. So like I said, those are conductive. And then evaporative ones are basically help allow you to evaporate the sweat from your body more effectively. And lastly, I'm going to talk about the low efficacy. And so these are probably the products that you're most familiar with. They're low cost, they're easy to implement. They have less effective cooling rates than the other ones I've just shown, but that doesn't mean they're not effective. They just have to be used appropriately. So I know, going from left to right, the hand cooling device is quite technical. So that you can just have your hand dipped into a cooler or something like that for hand cooling. But there's water dowsing, head cooling, ice slushy, so ice, and then cooling towels. Cooling towels are probably the most seen in your particular work setting. It's important if you do use cooling towels that you use them appropriately. So what you want to do is, if you have like a ice bucket, you want to make sure you're dipping those cooling towels into them so that the towel stays cold. Because if you're just putting first a cold towel and then it turns hot, the hot towel then is going to do nothing for your cooling. And so you want to make sure that your workers are also covering as much as body surface area as they can with the cold towels, because that's going to just help with their cooling. And so I've created a body cooling flow chart, and Carlos is going to be giving everyone these slides. So all this information is available to you. This is essentially a decision-making tool for you to be able to decide what products are effective for you and your job site. So of course, a cooling center is important to determine whether or not your workers can remove their PPE. And so whether or not they can will dictate what products you can use, and then whether or not your work site has access or easy access to power. And you can see on the right, there's different plans based on those decisions. And so before I conclude, I know Brian talked a little bit about this, but body cooling strategies improve safety and health, which is of course our number one priority, but they do improve productivity as well. So I think a lot of people think of body cooling as opposing forces, or safety and health and productivity as opposing forces, but they really do work together. So body cooling will help productivity because your workers are going to be able to work at a greater capacity, and that will therefore help with productivity as well as safety and health. So just to conclude, my email is at the bottom here if you have any questions, but body cooling is an effective strategy. If you were thinking about which strategy to use, the acronym LEFT, so location, efficacy, feasibility, and timing. Make sure to educate your workers and remember that body cooling helps with safety, health, and productivity. And there's a lot of different options for you to choose from. Just make sure to pick the right fit for your setting and your workers. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. And so I'm going to ask all of our panel members to turn their cameras on, because we're going to go into the Q&A portion. And piggybacking on Margaret's presentation, I'm actually going to put out a poll, and we're interested in seeing, let's see here, polls. Sorry, guys. And I'm launching a poll right now. Thanks to Mr. Ray Padron, I added misting at the bottom because he asked specifically about misting. So I separated that from just air movement. So if you guys could all take a moment and let us know what products you're using on your job sites, I think that would be really cool. And I saw some of you using the Q&A feature. So my advanced Zoom users, that's fantastic. And you guys got some answers. And I think a lot of it was specifically due to fluids. I saw one question that wasn't answered, but I believe that both Brian and Dr. Parks touched on Cuban coffee and the use of energy drinks on the job site. So what do you guys think about those? Is that something you need to talk to your workers about, or is it just something you need to monitor?
I wanted to comment on that, in person, because caffeine is a stimulant. Remember, some of the concepts of cooling in the body is that it doesn't, heat does cause increased blood flow, heart rate, which helps increase blood flow, but then you're also adding on to that with the use of caffeine products. So you have to be extremely careful with that, because too rapid of a heart rate can be actually very detrimental as well to the human body. So, and especially those with underlying health conditions. So, and also it stimulates the kidneys to increase urine output, meaning you're losing more water that way as well. So just given the, overall physiological effects of both caffeine and the stimulants contained in a lot of the drinks and the coffee, it can actually contribute to dehydration. You have to be very careful in the use of those. I mean, all of us, including myself, use caffeine, including coffee or Starbucks in the morning to make myself more aware or stimulate my brain. But they do have an effect that can be detrimental in the heat environment. So everybody needs to be aware of that.
Yeah, Carlos, and to just add parts, I think the key here is education, right? It's just simple conversations of communicating constantly with our workers out in the field and being aware of what is it that they're purchasing from that lunch truck, right? What are they bringing? What I often find is, and not to put people into demographics, but you have your younger crowd that are really, into the large energy drinks, right? They need that pick me up. But that first 15 minutes after that drink, that you feel great, you're paying for it after in about an hour or 2 hours, right? With unnecessary fatigue that's going to set on. And then obviously that could lead to an issue with heat stress. So communication is key here, and educating your workers out there in the field, right? Having that conversation. I know it seems simple, it's not that big a deal, but it does affect pretty much everyone on the job site, right? When an emergency happens, we all want to pitch in to help. So that means your entire job's going to stop, right? That means we're now creating other hazards responding to an emergency. So think of it from that perspective. Carlos.
No, thank you. And I saw somebody else ask a question that was answered in the chat. And by the way, I'm going to close out that poll in the next 5 to 10 seconds. So I'd like to get to at least half of the folks here. So if you haven't answered the poll, please chime in. I think somebody asked about the temperature of the fluid, and Dr. Parks answered 50-50 ice to water. So you don't want anything too cold if the person's having an issue. Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the physiological effects of really near freezing fluids within the mouth or the throat. I mean, it actually can cause a vasovagal effect. You just have to be careful with too much cold fluid being flushed down your throat. So I generally just say it can be cold. Just don't try to drop it to near freezing, please, because it can actually have an opposite effect as well.
Okay, no problem. Let's see here. Let's see what other questions we have. People have been enjoying the presentation. That's great.
Carlos, is it okay if I just add something really quick? It's not to the two questions, but just something that I think will be important.
Sure.
So I just also want to reiterate that I think when we think of heat stress, people think of heat-related illness as the only outcome, but in reality, that's not true. There's a lot of different poor outcomes that can come from the dangers of heat. So it can be occupational injury, it can be cardiovascular events. So heat can cause all of these things. So please keep that in mind. And these heat mitigation strategies are really going to help not just reduce your risk of heat-related illness, but other conditions across the board.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share the results of that poll. Here you go. So you guys can take a look at what's going on. You know, I think we were talking about earlier the less expensive options, even though they have lower efficacy, doesn't mean that they're not effective. And I think we can see that air movement's big. Mr. Padron, you and Brian make up half of the folks using misters that are on the poll, so that's very cool. Cold, wet towels, head cooling, air movement, top 3. Okay, and I'm going to stop the share results. Brian, is there anything cool or unique that you're doing on your job sites?
I wish I could say, you know, we're cool and unique, but, you know, nothing really outside the box. And I think that's the important part is we're talking about simple solutions, right? Something as simple as a tent, a shaded area is a massive, you know, upgrade over being out in the sun directly exposed to it. There's a vast difference in temperature from being under a shaded tent than being directly out in the sun, right? Not to mention, if a heat stress event does happen, one of the first things they always tell you to do is get that person to shade immediately, right? So you're doing twofold. One is you're doing something that's going to prevent it from happening. And two, in case of an emergency, you now have an area where you can go ahead and assess that worker and see, okay, what else do we need to do, right? You know, one of the things I didn't mention, but I think it's very important. I've seen, you know, our local safety suppliers are selling these. It's a heat stress kit. Every single one of my roofing crews that goes out there to work, whether it's in the service side or the production side, has a heat stress kit, knows how to use every component within that heat stress kit, knows how to apply it in case of an emergency. And this is that portion of education that I keep trying to go back to, right? Training, 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 right? Make sure you have someone on your job that is trained in first aid, but not only first aid, but be very specific with heat stress. What do you need to do, right? What does that emergency look like? And the more you're aware of what to do, if you have a plan in place, when the day comes, because you know the likelihood it will happen, right? We will get that one person that doesn't really pay attention to what they're being told. They said they're going to be fine. They're going to drink that giant caffeinated sports drink, and then lo and behold, we're in the middle of August, and boom, they're dizzy. They didn't say anything. They're down on the floor. Now what? So like the saying goes, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? And in safety, that couldn't be more truer. I know we have plans on plans on plans, but when it comes to heat stress, it's a serious topic. I've seen it myself, and the sooner and quicker you're able to react to that, the better the outcome. Sorry for no technology though, Carlos.
No, that's okay. In fact, what I did is that I put a heat stress, or do you employ heat stress kits on your job site? And that poll just went out because I think it'd be interesting to see whom else is using that on their job sites. So if, I put yes, no, or not sure. So if you're looking at that on your screen, please take that poll and I'll share those results so we can take a look.
Yeah, and the heat stress kits, again, it's nothing very expensive, but the contents in there, you're going to have cooling packs, you're going to have small packs of electrolytes, you're going to have, it even has a reflecting piece of, I guess I don't even know what to call it, but it's a shaded area, right? So if you've got 4 workers holding up that shaded area for that one person, if you don't have a tent, guess what? Now you have an area to assess that employee. Again, we have job sites that are out in the middle of nowhere and say in the Everglades out there in the West, right? Who's going to be anywhere near them within an hour? So it's important to have that first aid education, that training, and knowing what to do in case that event does happen, especially if you're working out in the Everglades where the humidity and the heat index are through the roof.
And there we go. There are the results. So just a couple people employing those. So that's great. I mean, it's not great actually, but it's good to see the data of what's going on there. Okay. Actually, man, folks, if you have questions, please put those in the chat. Take advantage. You got 3 experts from 3 different fields on here. So feel free to ask these folks questions. And guys, if you have questions of each other, things that you want to talk about, please feel free.
I do want to stress, if I may, think about the worker needs to be self-aware. And I think that component, because most workers are motivated to keep working, right? To be productive, to make money. And you have to understand too that awareness that they're in trouble really lags the actual physical state that they're in. They're going to be in trouble before they realize it. They're going to need water before they realize they need to drink it. They're nearing heat exhaustion before they actually know it. So I think that's that the recommendation for the buddy system, you know, being aware of each other. Also the system of, you know, regular planned breaks. That I think that needs to be high on the list of everybody's priorities, because people may just keep working. They don't want to stop working. I know I do. When I'm working, it's like, I don't have time for this. But but after a while, if I'm in my yard, I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm starting to feel funny. Oh my God, I should have been drinking water all along, or that Pedialyte or Gatorade or some type of electrolyte supplement within my fluids. You know, I need to stay hydrated. But again, I've already sort of ignored myself. And it's that portion that we're all prone to as human beings. So that's pretty important from a medical point of view, is that hydration, and making sure that you can't rely on the workers to almost take action on their own. You have to make it a formal program for them.
Yeah, and you know, Dr. Parks, when we were talking during our practice sessions, you and Brian both touched on something that we talked about a little bit more yesterday, which was acclimatizing that employee,
I stopped using that word. I just
acclimatizing the
say
employee.
becoming acclimated now.
We just say
There
heat
you go.
here.
Yeah. So, you know, we were talking about that. So yesterday you mentioned that we're going to see a spike in heat stress incidents, which is what you guys see over at Concentra at the beginning of summer and again at the end of summer.
Right.
Could you explain again why at the end of summer? Because that was really interesting.
Well, I mean, like, it's a common phenomenon in a lot of illnesses, not just heat, but there's the I call it the newbie phenomenon. So anybody who's new to a job will be particularly susceptible to the stresses of whatever they're working with, heat especially, because you do have to acclimate. Now, as people work over time in the acclimation, and who are acclimated over time, also tend to become, especially towards the end of summer, more fatigued of their body basically is becoming more susceptible to heat. They actually want to get the job done. I know a lot of your jobs are time-based, so they don't want to take the time to take care of themselves. They're tired of having to take the breaks. But their bodies also are getting tired too. I mean, there's only so much stress and a duration of time that you can take before you need a break, and especially in a hugely physically exertion, a job with a large amount of physical exertion. So over time, the body then just tires out. So I call it the late summer fatigue, or just the tenured effect, as I call it as well. So you can apply that to a lot of different exposures at work, be it repetitive trauma, be it heat, as we said, or even cold. There's another effect of cold too. So you have to think of it that way, that the body reacts acutely in the short term, but then in the long term, there's a cumulative exposure effect as well.
Great. Okay. I don't see any more questions. You all did a fantastic job. So thank you very much to the three of you for being on here with us today. You got me with the acclimatization thing. So now I'm just fumbling words left and right. So we're very grateful to have you all here with us and prepare us for what we know is going to be a very hot season coming. It's going to start now, and it's not going to end till late September. So, you know, we're grateful for you all coming on. I'm sure we'll be asking you all to come back. Brian is on our safety committee, so he's just part of the family. So with that, thank you all very much. Thanks to all of you out there who attended today and participated. You know, we do this for you all. And your input is what makes us better. So if you have a suggestion for a topic that you feel is timely that we should address on our safety sessions, let us know. We're all very accessible. I'm going to go very quickly. I want to thank everyone again for being on here. Margaret, thank you so much. Brian, Dr. Parks, thank you all very much. Concentra's a member, so I look forward to seeing more of Concentra here at our safety sessions and participating in what we do here at AGC. So that's fantastic. I also want to thank all the members of our safety committee. Brian gets 2 thank yous in one shot. Great. Deborah Hampton, Ian Schwartz, Jose Bobadilla, and Enrique Sequeira. Mark Leon as well. Thank you all very, very much. Next month's safety session is on May 12th. You'll all be getting a registration link for that. We've been doing great. Thank you all for attending. And there's a lot going on at the South Florida AGC. Don't forget Safety Week coming up. You can reach out at the folks from Milwaukee if you want them out on your job sites. And you'll have contact information for the 3 folks that are participating here on today's panel. So thank you all very much. And I look forward to seeing you all next month. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Stay hydrated.
Thank you all. It's a privilege.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.